Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at, well, a fish you might even have at home. The zebrafish.
That's right, a tiny fish originally swimming in South Asian rivers.
But it's become this global powerhouse. We're going to explore how it went from just a popular pet to a key player in really cutting-edge science.
It's quite a journey.
So our mission is to unpack that story.
Right.
And see what impact it's had.
Exactly.
Okay, so starting at the beginning, it's easy to see why it became popular in aquariums. It's tough, breeds easily.
And those stripes, those 5 blue stripes are pretty striking, like a little underwater zebra. Made it an instant hit, really.
But the lab connection, that's where it gets interesting. You told me the lab fish didn't exactly come straight from the Ganges River, did they?
No, not at all. Actually, the strains that, form the foundation of zebrafish research globally, they trace back to just a few fish.
A few fish.
Yeah, that a researcher named George Streisinger just bought from a pet shop in Oregon, of all places.
A pet shop in Oregon. Not some big scientific collection effort.
Nope, just regular pet shop stock.
Wow. So does that starting point matter for the science? Starting from pet fish?
Oh, absolutely. It led to a really significant genetic difference. Turns out those lab strains, they lost a major gene cluster that determines sex in their wild cousins.
They lost the sex gene.
A key one, yeah. So it does raise some questions, like how well do findings from these lab fish, especially on anything sex-related, apply back to wild populations, or even potentially to other contexts?
Interesting. Okay, let's switch gears a bit, because biotechnology really threw a curveball into the zebrafish story with glowfish, didn't it?
Oh, definitely. That's where things get really bright, you could say.
Huh. So these glowing fish, how did that happen?
Well, the funny thing is, they weren't first made to be pets. The original idea, the aha moment, was to create a living biosensor.
A biosensor, like to detect things.
Exactly, to detect pollution. The idea was they'd glow, fluoresce when they encountered certain toxins in the water. Scientists just popped in a gene from a sea coral.
Simple as that, a coral gene.
Well, maybe not simple, but that was the concept.
And then someone saw the pet potential.
Precisely. Yorktown Technologies licensed the tech, and boom, the Glowfish brand took off. It got valued eventually at something like $37.8 million.
37 million for glowing fish.
Yep. And get this, they now make up maybe 10% of the entire U.S. aquarium market. They even boosted the number of people setting up new aquariums.
So a huge commercial hit.
Yeah.
But not without some ripples, right? There was controversy.
There was. Concerns definitely surfaced, especially when genetically modified ones were found breeding out in the wild in creeks in Brazil. This was years after Brazil had actually banned their sale.
So a scabies setting up shop.
Seems like it, although studies suggest the glow isn't exactly a survival advantage. They tend to be less fertile and probably easier for predators to spot. Makes sense, right? Glowing isn't great camouflage.
Sure.
But it also sparked ethical debates, modifying animals just for looks.
And there were some unusual IP restrictions. You couldn't breed your glowfish and sell the offspring. Right, okay. So, fascinating commercial side, but let's pivot back to the science. Why is this specific fish, this little striped minnow, so incredibly important for researchers?
It really comes down to a few amazing features. First, transparency. The embryos are see-through.
Completely clear.
Yep, and they develop externally outside the mother. So you can literally watch organs form in real time under a microscope. No need for invasive procedures. It's like having a window straight into development.
That's incredible, and they develop quickly, I hear.
Unbelievably fast. Like 24 hours for a zebrafish embryo covers roughly the same developmental ground as a month for a human embryo.
A month and a day. But it's still a fish. How much can it really tell us about humans?
Surprisingly, a lot. About 70% of human genes have a clear equivalent, a counterpart, in zebrafish.
70%.
And if you look specifically at genes linked to human diseases, that number jumps to about 84%.
84%? That's huge.
It is. Plus, they have the same basic organs we do: heart, brain, liver, kidneys, often working in very similar ways. Think about heart rhythm, electrical signals. Very comparable. Or even their eyes. They have cone-dominant retinas like us.
Okay, that's convincing. But then there's the regeneration thing. That sounds almost like science fiction.
It really borders on it. This is maybe their most stunning trait. If you injure a zebrafish's heart, or spinal cord, or even its retina, it can regenerate that tissue perfectly.
Perfectly, like no scar.
Exactly. Scar-free regeneration of complex tissues is remarkable. And for scientists, it provides this amazing living system in vivo to figure out how they do that. How do they switch those regenerative pathways back on? Pathways that are mostly dormant in us.
So the hope is we could learn to reactivate those pathways in humans.
That's the long-term dream, yeah.
So pulling it all together, what's the big takeaway here?
Well, this tiny fish is just invaluable. It helps screen drugs faster and cheaper than using mammals. It lets us watch brain activity in a living, transparent brain from neuroscience. We can model human diseases, cancer, Alzheimer's, you name it.
It really has reshaped both the pet industry and how we understand ourselves, our own biology.
Absolutely. From pet shop to lab bench, it's impacting commerce and human health profoundly.
So a final thought for our listeners to chew on.
Okay, think about this. If this little fish can perfectly regrow its heart or spine after major damage, what if we could truly understand how? Could this zebrafish ultimately give us the keys, the actual blueprint for therapies that let humans heal major injuries perfectly too? Not just patch things up with scars, but truly regenerate. Something to mull over.